Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 5 of the anime series, Orange. And man, this episode was just layers and layers, twists and turns, reveals, just absolutely compelling character dynamics. I mean, bloody Suwa and Kakaru coming out and saying, I know you like Naho, and Hagita letting that slip that he suspects Suwa likes Naho and everything, and Azusa, the girls just lost it at that, and I mean, Naho, expressing to herself from the future to appreciate and be aware of what Suha has done. She very much loves Suwa in this future. This is just utmost compelling. I was at the edge of my seat so many times throughout the course of this episode. It was bewildering to me. This is how you do a love triangle. This is doing a love triangle dynamic right, the correct way, subtle. And you burgeon these characters. They draw you in and you care so much for them. You see what kind of an upstanding, righteous dude Suwa is, so you might be, rooting for Naho to get with Kakaru, but then you're also like, but no, I don't want to see this relationship in the future between Naho and Suwa, who are married and have a child. I don't want to see that come crumbling down. I feel for all three of these characters. I feel for the entire group of friends, and it's just like, my God, man, this is how you do this kind of a story. And it's even that much further enhanced for me personally, being a science fiction fan and a fan of time travel, as well as real scientific quantum theory, string theory, theory of parallel worlds, all that kind of stuff, which gets highly discussed. I really didn't know up until they started delving into it if they were ever going to really touch upon this sort of explorative theorizing about time travel, about parallel worlds, and, all that kind of stuff. And for them to actually delve into it, on the one hand, I was really excited because this is stuff that speaks to me. This is stuff I've been interested in since elementary school, since Back to the Future and The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Time travel is such a compelling vehicle. And, like the idea of these letters somehow being sent back or sent across dimensions, whatever you want to say. It's really still unclear. I like that it's ambiguous as to which of these possibilities is the actual unfolding one that's going on around these characters. But at the same time, I also felt like it was kind of a cop-out, because I think we've already had the tipping of the hat for those of us, myself included, who have been really worried about seeing the crumbling down of that, future where Suwa and Naho are together with their child. Well, in a way, by introducing the idea that there could be parallel worlds and maybe it's sort of cross-dimensional communication and not necessarily time travel, that future may yet be intact the way it is, and it may be a past in an alternate sort of dimension, an alternate world that is actually being affected by the changes from Naho's letter from the future. This Naho could be one that exists within a brand new separate timeline in a different parallel world. And so it's kind of almost, giving you the sense that you can have your cake and eat it too. In one parallel world, you will have Naho and Suwa forever together with their child, happily ever after, with the insight that Naho in that future could send a letter somewhere else and change the lives of Naho and Kakaru in a parallel dimension where, it's having the cake and eating it too, because here Kakaru and, Naho can be together, and that can be worked out there. And so both can basically exist by the end. And so for me, on the one hand, it's uber compelling, and on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, is that how it's going to play out? Do we basically, are we now rendered sort of, there's no anxiety about what could unfold because we're already seeing the changes to this alternate world, this alternate timeline, this alternate dimension, whatever you want to call it, where Naho insists that time is changing, the future is changing. She's getting closer to Kakaru. Kakaru is getting closer to her. Even though certain of the events haven't happened as the letter had exposed to Naho, you know, the whole idea of this festival, and it was originally Kakaru who asked Naho, you know, would we be able to see the fireworks together, alone, by ourselves, have this intimate moment? In this, you know, alternate sort of scenario, we have Naho being the one to actually amp herself up and express through just this courageous effort, touching upon her true feelings, you know, let us see the fireworks together. And so both can kind of exist now. It almost, you know, takes out, like I say, the anxiety of, well, maybe Kakaru actually isn't going to die after all. Maybe both realities can exist, where he is saved, where he has already passed on, and we'll kind of just see both versions coinciding, you know, right alongside each other. It almost, you know, debilitates kind of the ending, potentially. I don't want to get ahead of myself and say, well, now the story's ruined, you know. But it's something that occurred to me with this idea of parallel worlds. And you have the excuses in the works now, basically, is what I'm getting at, you know, to be able to have both realities continue to exist. So nobody has to be unhappy by the end, potentially. We have yet to see how it goes beyond this point. But I was really drawn in to the plight of Suwa dealing with this conflict, and the plight of Naho, who I really believe we're seeing for the first time reservations on her part, that, you know, she is recognizing Suwa, not necessarily just because the letter tells her so, but once the letter has, her noticing him and being grateful for him is, you know, burgeoning that much more, just as much, you know, going right alongside with her interest in Kakaru. And it's very interesting, you know, for lack of a better term, the interests that are aligning here. Again, this is how you do a love triangle. But at the same time, if in fact we've kind of had the scenario dead-legged with the idea, well, now both realities can coexist in a manner of speaking, you know, it's like, well, where's the tension then? No matter what happens, unless, of course, other quirks of fate, if you will, you know, bad ones, wiggle their way into the story where, you know, maybe in this reality where it's Naho and Kakaru, maybe Suwa has an ill-fated scenario befalling him, and maybe there will be a tragedy there. Maybe other characters will have tragedies befall them. It really is hard to tell. And, of course, you have the added frustration of Ueda Senpai getting all up in Naho's face, very borderlining bullying her. It was one of her, you know, side gals, the one who's been noticing every time Kakaru and Naho are together and going back and reporting to Ueda, you know, mistress, she might as well call her, and being a real bitch about it, you know, a sneaky bitch, if you will. All three of these girls, or however many there were, that were actually cornering Naho when they realized she had the hairpin Kakaru had given her. And I suspected right away that Ueda knew where it came from. She was just sort of going through the motions of playing dumb, asking Naho, oh, did you buy it yourself? Can I see it? You know, I mean, I was almost ready to suspect that maybe this was a gift Ueda had, you know, given the Kakaru or something, you know, like, this is something that is personal to me. I want you to have it. It was my grandmother's, something along those lines, and she gives it to Kakaru. And then Kakaru goes and turns around and gives it to Naho or something along those lines. But I think that would have been pretty despicable on all parties' fronts, you know, if that were the case. But of course you have Suwa, again, best boy Suwa, getting in there, being the man, taking care of Naho, and that conflict arising out of it. Again, just having me almost biting my nails like, wow, the tension is real, man. The tension, this love triangle is real. And it's like I'm rooting for two couples. And, you know, like, one of the people in both of those couple equations is the same person. And it's like, it can't work out. But at the same time, parallel worlds, maybe it can work out, you know? And it's, man... just this episode got me hyper. I was hyper attuned to it. I plotted everything else out, and it was just like, damn, seeing this coming together, seeing these characters, you know, I want Kakaru to live. I don't want him to have a fate of you know, seeing his life be lost and nothing being able to be done about it. And we can have that. We can have that with this parallel world idea. And as somebody who has been really entranced by science fiction, time travel concepts, and theory, quantum theory, and all that kind of stuff, like, I have always been of the mind that they always bring forth that equation of, you know, if you go back into the past to alter your future to a point where in that future you no longer need to alter your past, well, doesn't that render the whole point moot? And, you know, it's a whole paradoxical thing. And I've always been of the mind that that's too simplistic, you know. It's kind of overlooking what a paradox is. If you're a person in the future who takes yourself effectively out of time, think of yourself as standing in a river, and you're standing, you know, if you're looking at a river, a picture of a river on a screen, you're standing at the far right, and that's the elder you who wants to change their past. You effectively, by creating a time machine, you take yourself, a bubble forms around you, and you lift yourself up out of the river, and you backtrack, you float backwards. And effectively, this is a paradox wherein you have been removed from the flow of time. So if you go back to the past and you change the past, the you that has gone back will remain unaffected. You know, time will not double back and try to catch up with you and wipe you out, as they try to, you know, suggest, at least to my thinking, in this, you know, episode talking about the real theorem of you know, that past equation, the grandfather paradox. And I would think that, you know, the flow of time would be altered, but effectively you would not be, and you would have the future you sought out to create. And, you know, because you've been removed from the flow of time, whether or not the future you needed to do it would no longer be a point, because the future you left that time and place and can now follow the flow of time that is altered normally again, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's making any sense or whatever. Maybe I'm getting a little too dense, but it's a topic I greatly enjoy discussing and theorizing and speculating about, especially in a character-driven drama like this series, which is just balls to the wall awesome sauce. I'm so drawn in and I'm so compelled, and seeing Ueda living up to my speculation that she would be a continuing problem, seeing this dynamic, this love triangle dynamic between Naho, Suwa, and Kakaru, you know, seeing their friends rooting for them one way or the other, getting up in each other's faces. Look, if we're going to do this thing, we're going to, you know, support Naho and Kakaru, we all got to be in agreement and all that kind of stuff. And here the future still yet exists, where we find out the Naho in the future, her last memories of any interactions with Kakaru was sending a text where he had done something that upset her, and he wanted to apologize, but he wanted to know who she gave the Valentine chocolates to. And immediately I'm like, Suwa, right? Maybe, because Naho and Suwa in that future are a thing. And it's still up in the air. It's like, while I almost feel like they've tipped their hat, and we've already gotten an insight as to how this is all going to culminate once it reaches its finale, there's still yet nothing set in stone, and it could still go any which way. And damn if I'm not loving it. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 5 of Orange, if you've seen it, if you were as compelled by it and just, you know, stoked by it as I was. If not, why not? Let me know in the comments below. Anything goes. Love it or hate it. Just love having that conversation. And yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you later. Peace.